toward the One,
the
the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of guidance.
We'd like to begin thanking people for amazing sharing that's going on, some of it on the group that's sharing, and then others individually that are sending communications to Azarbash and myself, and some people that I know locally. And what I'm seeing, what we're seeing, is an amazing bursting forth, a realization that's shared, and also friendship that's shared among us that's helping us in this beautiful work. So it's a wonderful feeling to be a part of you all. And tonight we're going to speak about what you could say is the visions of the soul, or using the visionary and creative capacities that we've been speaking about. In taking a look at landscapes, angels, and you could say allegories of the soul, our own stories. I wanted to begin with a review and refocusing, perhaps collecting different visions about the resurrection body, so that you can have them now and maybe listen to them later on. There might be a lot to constitute, really absorb right now, but I will put them here, and then you can take at your leisure, take another look. We had a wonderful quote from Ibn Arabi last week about the moment of resurrection, and you might tune back to that as an introduction to this. But here are some other images that might help you with reconnecting or envisioning your own resurrection body. It refers to deep within ourselves, we hold the image of the light called Svarna, which shines from everywhere at once like a faceted gem. Another hint is the resurrection body is made of the elements of the Barzakh rather than the elements of the earth. And as you remember, the elements of the Barzakh are way more dimensional and way more rich with qualities than we have at least been able to perceive in our material existence. Imagine the light of Svarna stoked by the desires of our heart, revealing a self-reflecting vision only we as a manifest divine human can embody. A vision capable of interfacing the sacred and manifest existence in a way unique to our inheritance. So bringing in our own uniqueness and referring to the Barzakh and our participation in the Barzakh as being able to interface the inner and the outer in only the way that we can, that you individually can. And one more image. Imagine a liquid faceted gem reflecting the inner to the outer, which can change according to our visionary creative capacity. So maybe you can work with these in your meditations this week. And I know you had something to add to resurrection.
So the first series of classes we did was about birthing the resurrection body, and this series is about living in the resurrection body. But they really go together because we're in an ongoing process of becoming more and more capable of being in that much fuller state of being that is the true nature of our soul. So what does it mean to be in the resurrection body? You could say, what are some signs that you are experiencing that state of being. Well, one sign is that in that state, there's a very deep feeling and experience of interconnectedness with everything that you're experiencing. And because our consciousness is capable of focusing in different directions, Purvalaya talked about the 4 directions of meditation: the transcendent dimension, going beyond any manifestation, the turning within, where everything is interconnected, the cosmic dimension, the connection with everything in existence, and the 4th is awakening in life, bringing divinity into the fullness of life. So a hope that I have for us in this series is the aim is to be able to discover how to experience the state of beingness right in the thick of our day-to-day existence, not something beyond and getting very spacey, but being very grounded, but living in a reality that has, you could say, has opened up into much more dimensionality, many more possibilities. Sometimes I describe this as having more degrees of freedom than we had before. And in the past, I've talked about the research of William Tiller with subtle energy and linking with manifestation and changing the properties of what he calls ordinary reality. Well, being in the resurrection body is being in a state where there's been this conjoining of the multiple dimensions of our being into whatever experiences that we are having in the world, whatever direction our consciousness is focused in. And we've been sharing and will continue to share with you what we could call tools for enabling this process. And we have many tools. We have working with the sacred names of God, the Wazaif. We have practices that we're going to have a sampling of tonight, working with what we could call landscapes of the soul. We've done practices working with different experiences of energy, and there's practices with breath and so on. But the aim of all these practices is not the practices for their own sake, but it is awakening ourselves into the capacity of functioning in this multidimensional reality, of being able to, Barzakh means interface or meeting place, but we could say it's a state of continually being in the meeting place or Barzakh with everything that we're encountering, opening up the deeper reality that unfolds by that connection, whether it's with another person or something in nature, or whether it's an internal experience.
So I'd like to invoke something you were just speaking about, this opening up. If you remember, we spoke about Sventar Maitik, which was a process. It is use of the thought of wisdom that Sventa Armaiti, in the tradition of Zoroastrianism, and in hopefully in your own experience these days, invited us to actually relate to her as you are, as the son or as the daughter, having a relationship, a direct relationship with this multidimensional being. And we thought of this in 4 different ways, and I'm going to review these for us because this might aid in our development of what we called our visionary capacity of the soul. And the first one was this multidimensionality, or opening up the house of Sventa Armaiti within us, which can be done so many different ways, and we found our favorites probably in our art or in our music or in our interpersonal relationships, in our practices in many ways. And then the next was exemplifying the mode of being of this archangel. And it really meant allowing the qualities or the wazaif to bloom within you. It's one way of thinking about it. So that these things that seem like concepts now are not concepts at all, but really are an expression of our own individuality in concert with all that there is. They're kind of like the notes that you could play one by one, but together they form that uniqueness that is you. And so we learn more about our own being and the rest of creation as we learn from the qualities and allow them. The next was imagination, using that. This is the true imagination, the thought of wisdom, the power capable of substantiating and vivifying. And we'll be continually working with this and noticing it around us and valuing it in what we've already accomplished in our lives. We find that we have been doing these things. We have already been exercising our capabilities in this regard. We didn't even know it. It was really like living in a world in which we had very limited light, and we were just feeling our way through things. And by doing that, and by noticing, how much changes in us by loving, by challenging ourselves, and all these different things, we have been exercising that imagination. And so we can take it farther. And then lastly, the idea of uniqueness. Just as we have our own unique celestial self, we also, as beings in creation, are able to have a vantage point that the divine